Today, I am joined by one of the moms from our Homeschool Better Together community. I'm joined by Miss Katie McCune. Katie, thank you so much for being here with me today.
You're welcome, Pam. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad that you're here. And just start by telling me a little bit about like yourself and as much as you're willing to share about your family and your homeschool journey. How long have you been doing it? How many kids do you have?
Sure, happy to share. I live in Colorado with my husband of 16 years and our three hilarious kids. They are 12, 10, and 7. In my spare time, I enjoy silence, as I think most moms do.
I
Um,
love it.
Copious amounts of coffee, reading fiction or nonfiction books, and dark chocolate. We have just begun our 5th full year homeschooling just after seeing how the public school system wasn't meeting the needs of our oldest kiddo. And our kids are just so much happier being at home with us and with each other.
Oh, I love it. So you were actually a pre-COVID homeschooler. You guys started homeschooling before the pandemic.
Yes and no. We were off and on before then, but definitely we went through a period of e learning. My oldest and my middle kiddo were in public school at the time. And we went through that e learning phase and it was just really rough. And so we definitely decided to pull them out fall of 2020 and just homeschool full time because that was just easier for us at that point.
So tell me a little bit about what was your homeschool? First of all, when did you do the boot camp for the very first time? Because we're talking about the Homeschool Consistency Bootcamp today. So when did you do it for the very first time?
I think I did my first round of the Homeschool Consistency Bootcamp in 2022 or 2023. I think it was fall of 23, maybe. So it's been a couple of years and I've done a couple different rounds of it so far.
Okay. So what was your homeschool like before you did the boot camp? What kind of challenges were you facing as a homeschool mom?
Our homeschool was fine, but I knew it could be better. Before the boot camp, we had a lot of days that were just morning time and educational board games, or morning time and either reading or math, or we'd do a lot of spontaneous field trips just to avoid getting any work done. I know there are a lot of other people like that. Let's go somewhere and then we can just have fun today and not have to stress about doing work, which is fine. But we were doing it probably once a week or more sometimes if the weather was nice. The biggest challenge that I was facing with that kind of mentality was not making a lot of progress in the resources that we were using. So I feel like we were going through our books really, really slow. And it was taking us a couple of years to finish like kind of one grade range of curriculum. And so I personally wasn't happy with that and didn't feel like that was enough for our school. And I knew that I could be more diligent and more consistent with what we were doing.
Okay. So I can remember like back in the day when I was struggling with consistency, and this was about 2013, 2014. I spent a lot of time just really beating myself up for that. So what kind of relationship did you have with yourself over this idea that, wow, it's taken me longer to get through? Because I'm listening to you talk about what you were doing, and I'm like, that's not horrible. One of the things we teach you to do in the boot camp is to create a minimum viable day. And it sounds like you had that going, and it's not horrible to take field trips. So why did this bother Katie McCune so much?
Definitely once I learned about the minimum viable day, like we were functioning at the minimum viable day level just all the time, just doing it really easy, really superficially, which like you said is good once in a while, but that was just our everyday. And it bothered me. I'm a finish the book person and we haven't always finished the book. So I do try to do that. So it was bothering my perfectionism a little bit that it was taking so long for us to get through things and that my kids were quote unquote behind, even though there's no behind in homeschooling. And so I think part of that was just my beginner's homeschool kind of mindset, just my expectations needing it to look a certain way and it not living up to that. So I was very hard on myself during that time period with just functioning at a bare minimum.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that was where the boot camp was born, was just because I was so hard on myself. And I'm like, okay, I need to create something that I feel good about, right? Because what I'm doing right now, I don't feel good about. And I don't think I would ever feel good about what I was doing. So I need to create something that, number one, is doable, that I can actually get up and do every day. And number two, I can feel good about. And so that's when I started really digging into. And you said the word perfectionism. I think so many of the people who go through boot camp really do struggle with perfectionism. I did a podcast episode a couple weeks ago about that very thing. And for the longest time, I would like, oh, like, you can't do school because you're lazy. You can't do school because you're lazy. And I realized, no, it wasn't because I was lazy. It was because I was a perfectionist. And I don't know if you can relate to any of that at all. But yeah, I spent a lot of time beating myself up. What you've done the boot camp. So explain to people in your words, in Katie's words, like, how did it make an impact? Was there anything that really stuck out to you? What did you do during the boot camp? And I think everybody does the boot camp a little bit differently, honestly.
Yeah. So during the boot camp, you've got the little lesson modules with videos that fit in at certain times. And so I enjoyed watching those, taking notes, hearing your experience on those different topics. There were usually like daily check ins.
Mhm.
And so during the afternoon, once we'd already done our school day, we would check in. Did we do it? Did we not? Why? What might have gotten in the way? If we didn't get done what we wanted to, where we had set the bar for our personal homeschool day. There were also the morning time texts that went out. Don't forget to start your school day. And so that was really helpful for me because those would usually pop up in my time zone before we started. So that was just a good, gentle nudge to get going with our homeschool day. And then the various tips and strategies and tricks that you guys shared were very quick and easy to implement or to think about and formulate a plan for different aspects of making either our homeschool day simpler if we needed it to be simple on certain days, or for planning ahead a little bit to make it easier for the next day.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you gave a really great overview of the different parts of the program. So what was your favorite part?
I think my favorite part was learning and then actually being able to implement the ideas. And even now, I haven't done the boot camp in, I think it's been about 6 months since you guys ran it last.
Mhm.
And even now, I'm still implementing things that I learned from the boot camp that really helped me and helped our day run more smoothly and efficiently. And I'm still using those and making them my own.
So I think one of the fears that people have when they hear, oh, boot camp, and they're over here thinking, I'm struggling, I'm drowning, I'm not doing school every day, I feel really bad about this, I would love to be better, but oh my goodness, how in the world am I going to do a 4-week, like a month-long class about being more consistent in my homeschool and it not just kill me under the weight of everything that I have to do? And so I would like for you to speak to that because I know that we've designed it in such a way that it causes you to do school. Like it's not like a bunch of stuff on top of, and now you've got to choose, am I going to do the boot camp or am I going to do school? Like boot camp is doing school. So what was your experience with that? Was it manageable for you?
It was very manageable. And honestly, I would compare it to someone extending a hand and offering like support into a lifeboat. It was very doable for me during our school days. It was just literally a quick check in the afternoon. And I don't even think that those are super duper mandatory, but the
Did you?
accountability.
I was going to say, did you check in? Because nothing's mandatory. It's not like we come to your house, but do you check in every day?
I I think Most days I did. There might have been a day I forgot. So sometimes I would go back like the next day and comment on yesterday's post. I did school yesterday. I just forgot to comment. And so it was really quick and easy to keep up with. It wasn't an extra thing that I had to do. It very easily just slid into my day, and it didn't take a lot of time at all, like maybe 30 seconds to a minute to just make that comment, and then a little bit of work every now and then whenever there was a video to watch. And so it was very easy and manageable for me.
So, what would you say is the biggest change that boot camp has made in your homeschool?
Yeah. So honestly, it's been a night and day scenario before, especially once I started implementing these ideas and doing like all of our subjects on a consistent basis. My kids were like, "Do I have to do language arts and math today?" And yes, you do. And so there was initially like some grumbling, but with the consistency and with having that plan and setting the expectation that we're going to do these certain things, in communicating that to my kids pretty clearly and just setting that out, the complaining is gone. We don't have perfect school days. And I had a kiddo this morning who was complaining about doing his work, but that's very atypical now. And I also feel like we have more time to do what I would like to do. Before, I was starting about 9:30. And so that was the late start for us to get in subjects like history or science or art, music, poetry, things that added beauty. And now we're starting at a much earlier time, and I don't feel as pressed for time to sprinkle those in. And so our homeschool has become more joyful and more peaceful because of that.
Oh, I love that so much. And yeah, that was totally what I discovered with my kids was when we were being consistent with school, when we were doing it regularly, then the pushback just they stopped asking. It stopped being a fight. They stopped seeing maybe if we drag our feet and cause problems and stuff like that, that she will just throw up her hands and say, we don't have to do it today. Because I'd done that so many times, right? And when we got consistent with it, they realized, no, that's that's not what I could do, or that was not what I was going to do. Okay, so I want to know. I think another thing that a lot of people worry about is that boot camp is going to make them feel bad. That somehow they're going to feel less than, or because when you think about the vision of boot camp, it's like there's a drill sergeant yelling at you, and sometimes I'm scared of Dawn, but most of the time I don't. So, what was your experience there?
Yeah.
And then too, in the receiving and offering support from the other boot campers.
Yeah. I think that Pam and Don are both the most gracious drill
Oh,
sergeants ever. And they're very encouraging. The whole atmosphere is just one of positivity. It's uplifting to parents who are struggling, and it's very helpful. I didn't rely on the community a ton just because that's my personal kind of preference. But I know that if I had an issue or if I had a hard day, I could come to the community. You and Don were both very full of grace, but also not afraid to give us a gentle nudge when we needed to think more deeply about something or whether we needed to examine our motivation behind not doing as much work or why didn't we get a day done. Just really loving, gentle questions to get us to think more and come to our own decisions.
yeah, yeah. And I think it's so important to point out, and you mentioned this earlier in passing as part of one of your answers, that you get to determine what success looks like. We never tell you, hey, Katie, in order for you to be successful with your school day, you've got to do 4 hours or you've got to do this many subjects or any of that stuff. You are the one who gets to determine. That's the very first thing you do in the warm
Mhm.
up. is, what does success look like for me? And so the mom with a brand new baby can, and I'm just going to be honest, I don't know that moms with brand new babies really need to take boot camp. I would say, yeah, put it off. We're going to do it 6 months later. Do it 6 months down the road. But they do. Sometimes they take it. And so she gets to define what success looks like. And for her, that might be just getting up 5 minutes before everybody else and like putting clothes on. And we're just going to encourage her to do that. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm way more fond of the accountability text than I am necessarily the community aspects. But then Dawn is really into the community stuff. And this is Dawn Garrett, who runs the boot camp with me. She's really into the community stuff. And so I think we play off of each other really well because she's in there like having all those conversations with people about what can we do to help you out. So
definitely.
You've talked about how there was more joy in your homeschool. There's way less pushback from your kids. Has your mindset shifted at all around homeschooling since the boot camp?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think of homeschooling now as my vocation, my career, so to speak. And I show up every day like it's a job. Some days I'm really stoked, and then other days I'm lagging behind everybody else. But it's the highest calling I think that we as moms accept. And so I definitely have changed my mindset about, it just being something that we do to, no, this is my job. This is what I'm here to do. And the most important thing of my day.
I love it so much. And that was a huge mindset shift for me too. That was the thing that I had to make it in my head because I was not the kind of person that ever, when I had a job, I showed up, right? You just, because you were supposed to do it. And that was such a huge mindset shift for me too. So I totally get on board with that one for sure. What would you tell somebody who's on the fence? They're like, do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? Is it going to be worth it? And can I change?
So I would say to someone who's on the fence, what have you got to lose? For me personally, I think that people who are looking to have more consistency in their homeschool have so much to gain by going through this course, learning from the experience of other people who have walked before us, also walking through kind of the valleys and the peaks with other people who are in it with us. It's definitely a journey and can be lonely. And this course offers support on that journey, but also just such invaluable advice.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for saying that. And I do think that's one of the big things for people is I think so often as homeschoolers, we feel isolated and then we have a problem and we think, oh, I'm the only one who has this problem. And if math is not working for a kid or spelling is not working for a kid, it's real easy to reach out to somebody and say, this isn't working. Can you help me figure it out? That's an easy piece of advice to ask for either on a park date or at co-op or something like that. But who feels like saying, oh my gosh, we only did school 2 days this week, and we only did school 3 days last week, and we only did school 4 days the week before. I'm feeling like a failure. Nobody wants to say that at park day or at co-op. And so to have this whole group of people who have been brave enough to raise their hand and say, me, I'm struggling with this, and put them all in the same place so they can actually talk to each other. And when I say talk to each other, I mean like you and I are talking to each other here in the community, talk to each other, but to have somebody, first of all, who understands, who's not going to judge you, and then who probably has some good advice to offer as well and come along on this journey with you. I just think that's so valuable. So yeah, I think so. Katie, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming and talking about your experience. And are you going to do boot camp again this fall?
Yes, I am definitely going to do boot camp again this fall and keep honing those little tips and tricks and just keep the ball rolling.
Yeah, I revisit it. I don't do it every time you guys do it, but every once in a while it'll be something like, oh, I've fallen off track with my morning time. And we're getting school done, but we're not getting morning time. It's been sometimes it's been a couple years, but sometimes I'll just go like 6 weeks and just, man, like I love morning time. Why can't I get back to it? And boot camp will be the thing that helps me get back on track. Or you could use it for just about getting on track with just about anything. The same way you build habits for schooling, you can also build habits for other things like going for a walk every morning or something like that. So, yeah, it's just a really good course. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Katie. I so appreciate you being here. I'll see you in boot camp in a few weeks, and I appreciate you sharing your experience with everybody.
You're welcome.